We ask a special blessing on our law enforcement officers, and especially the ones that are suffering at this time through the loss. Bless them and their families. We're grateful for all that we have and all the freedoms we enjoy, and we pray that we can protect them and maintain them and help our city to heal and continue to be a great place to live. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So I first just want to announce some upcoming events. Hopefully everybody received a newsletter telling about Hooper Tomato Days. It is our 100th year celebration. If you didn't by chance receive one in the mail, there are some of these, they're just folded up in a little holder out there on the stand. Make sure that you get one. We have a lot of the same activities planned for this year, plus we have some new ones. The very first event we have is coming up on next Monday. It's going to be our community dinner and dance in the park. The horse show will also be going on, and it starts at 6 o'clock. So like I mentioned, if you didn't receive one of these, make sure that you get them. We're also going to be doing a heritage booth. And so if any of you have any pictures that you would like to share with us, it doesn't necessarily have to be just of Tomato Days. We know that there are families that have lived in Hooper for over 100 years. And so if you have any pictures at all you would like to share, then you can either bring them into the office, or you can see me after and I can give you, or I can just give it to you now. You can always email them to me. It's just sbingham@hoopercity.gov. Another event that we're doing this year, which is a new event, is we are doing a magnet fishing activity. We have the ditch that runs along the east side of our park. For 3 years in a row, some of you probably remembered, we did fishing. And the first year we had catfish. They love the heat. They came from back east and south. The next year we had trout. They survived. The following year we had trout. They did not. And we were fishing out a lot of dead fish right before Tomato Days. So we're doing magnet fishing. So if you have any magnet items that you think might be fun for a child to fish out of the ditch, again, you can drop them off here at the city. We know if we clean out our garages, a lot of us have things. There will also be some metal tomatoes that we have cut that will be in there. And so if whoever's fishing happens to fish one of those out, then they go to the information booth and get a prize. There's going to be one gold tomato that will be even a little bigger prize. So again, a lot of fun things. We're having a horse pull, which is going to be, they haven't had one of those for a long time. We're doing a cowboy mounted chute. All of our events that we do, I think, are going to be really incredible. We have a really good community events coordinator, Erin Mon, and we appreciate her. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and have our first thing on the item and the agenda is public comments. If you have a comment you would like to make, come up to the microphone, state your name, and you have 3 minutes. Morgan, our city recorder, lets you know when your time is almost getting done and then when your time is done. And this is also a public hearing tonight on a couple of items. So if you're here maybe for one of those, you're going to have a chance to speak then as well. Okay, seeing no public comments then, we will go ahead and move on. And hopefully, council, you've had a chance to look at the minutes. I saw a couple of things, probably just a typo. One I noticed was on page 2, and it has Smith's, which should be capitalized. It's almost down to the 3rd sentence from the bottom, was one thing I noticed. Also, and this is just a grammatical error, it's on page 3, it has cities, and it should be cities, with an apostrophe S, because that is meaning the city's financials, not a plural of cities. On page 4, under our first action item on 8, his last name, Matthews, is Coyle, Koyle. So that was just a spelling. And then one other thing I noticed, and I believe Councilmember Hill, it was you that requested adding a recurring. So that just needs to be changed from Councilmember Fowers to Councilmember Hill. Council members, did you notice any other additions? corrections? Okay.
I just wanted to bring up one thing while we're talking about it. As far as just general order of our agenda, we have different sections. One of them is discussion items, reports, and presentations. And then the next heading says action items. I don't know if this is just recent, because I don't remember this happening before. But under action items, we generally have motion items. It's never said, like, for example, last time it says discussion and consideration of possible emotion. So in my mind, it should say under action items, motion item, you have three options. You either approve it, you deny it, or you table it. It shouldn't be, well, we've talked about it and maybe we don't want to do an action right now. You know, that's not really the correct order of an agenda meeting. It should either be an action or it should be a discussion item. It shouldn't be under action items and then just turn into a discussion and no action, if that makes sense.
Yes. Okay, I'm sure Morgan's making notes. Okay, any corrections on the minutes? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
I'll make that motion.
The motion was made by Councilmember Hill. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second was made by Councilmember Fowers. Any discussion on that motion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, so the first thing we're going to have then is a public hearing on the widening of 5500 West between 5500 South and the South County line. We appreciate everyone that came and attended the open house. So we'll go ahead. I just need to have motion to move into a public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, motion was made by Councilmember Hill. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second was made by Councilmember Wilcox. Okay, we will go ahead and move into our public hearing. So again, it's the same protocol. If you have something you would like to say, you can come up and this is your time. And now these comments are only on this specific item. On the agenda, on just the widening of the 5500 West between 5500 South. That is the public hearing that's going on right now. Is there anyone that would like to make a comment on that item? Okay, just state your name.
Nick Haskin, 5788 South, 5500 West, where I live. And I've got friends in here in this section. If my comments disagree with theirs, we're still friends. Just looking at what was presented here tonight with the widening of the road, I do not support that. I see it increasing speeds, increasing traffic, and making a safety issue where I've got to cross the road anyway to check my mail. Concerned about that. I've seen kids nearly get wiped out on that street there by a 10-wheeler before. So again, that's kind of my private, I own that part of the property. It's usable property to me where I use it for parking, where if we widen the streets and put sidewalks in, I'm not going to be able to park a camp trailer there temporarily. My kid's horseman is going to be roping at tomato days. We have friends that pull up with their gooseneck horse trailers to load and unload horses there all the time. So it's usable property space for me. So I don't look forward to curb and sidewalks and removing my existing fence and the trees as well, potentially, that have been there for who knows how long. They're huge sycamores that are 6 feet in diameter. Anyway, yeah, and we have the trail along the other side of the street there. So I don't understand why we're looking to put sidewalk when we have a paved trail so people can walk that area. So and there's only 15 houses between where the sidewalk ends and the county line that will serve that trail. Don't really understand the cost benefit of putting a trail in, or a sidewalk in on that side of the street. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. I'm just not supportive of it. I have a little narrow lot. Parking is kind of challenging for me when I have family and friends and we host events or parties. And so we use that side of the street for parking, where I think that would be challenging when we're putting in curbs and sidewalks and whatnot. So I just don't see that as, and personally, I don't see it as representative of Hooper in general. I support agriculture and kind of the lifestyle that we try to represent. I think that we is representative of Hooper. And when we're bringing in sidewalks and curbs and gutters and street lamps and all those things, I understand there's parts of Hooper that are using that in some of the new subdivisions. And some of the existing properties, I'm just not supportive of that. And I want to represent kind of the quieter, slower pace, agriculturally respective culture, if you will. So that's all I've got. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Kim Christensen, 57, 26 South, 5500 West. I've lived in Hooper going on almost 70 years. I guess I consider myself an old timer now. My grandma, who lives just a couple houses north of where I live now, she used to have a sign up on the side of her yard. It was on a big piece of plywood. And it said, "This place is like heaven to us, so quit driving like hell through it." That was 60 years ago. She would probably, if she wasn't dead now, she would die seeing the speed that the cars go up and down our road. And I'm sure everybody here probably thinks the same of their street also, unless they live in some kind of a cul-de-sac or something where people just can't get going that fast. But I'm okay with the widening the road. I don't see it. It is going to take some of my park space away. I can deal with that. I do agree that the road needs to be replaced. In front of my house, it's just starting to crumble. Just north of me, where cement pipe goes under the road for irrigation purposes on the west side of the road, it started to settle right there. And when these big 18-wheelers, and I'm not sure what's going on in that south end of Weber County, the north end of Davis County, but those 18-wheelers were becoming quite obnoxious. But they would hit that part of the road, and it just sounded like all heck was breaking loose. So it does need to be fixed. Something does need to happen there. Going back to the speed limit, it was before they put the pathway in, it was 40 miles an hour through there. When they put the pathway in, consideration for those people using the pathway, they reduced that to 30 miles an hour. I don't know what the plans are for that stretch of road. I think it would be challenging to raise that speed limit with the traffic coming out of the Davis County side being limited to 30 miles an hour. I told someone earlier, it seems like when they enter 5500 West coming from either direction, it's like they just entered into the Indianapolis Speedway, and their goal is to see how fast they can get going. I know in the last 2 weeks, there were cars that went by my house going at least 100 miles an hour, and it's a posted 30 mile an hour. Yeah, school has started. Our kids are walking back and forth across the street. It scares me to death. And so I would petition Hooper City, Weber County to somehow control the traffic. I routinely go up to 4700 West to get over to 4000 South, just because it's a much better road. It's wider, it's improved, it's a wonderful road. And seldom do I see cars violating the speed limit up there. It's almost like it's a norm. I mean, that's the speed limit. And so, we're going to abide by that. And I think something needs to happen on that stretch of road for us to control that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a comment in this public hearing? Okay, seeing none, then I will entertain a motion to move us back to regular meeting. Okay, the motion was made by Councilmember Fowers. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second was made by Councilmember Wilcox. Okay, we have Taylor Stoffer here with us tonight from JUB. So we're going to turn some time over to Taylor, and if we can do this in an orderly manner, if you have questions for Taylor that didn't get answered, then I will allow you to come back up and ask, because I think sometimes that's helpful. I know a lot of you already had your questions answered, but if there are some, we talked about this before, maybe it would be a good idea if they have some. So, okay, thank you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just talk briefly about this project that's proposed for 5500 West. We're calling it phase 2 because we've completed phase 1 on the north side. And now this is phase 2 that's on the south side. It's been funded by WFRC or UDOT funds. And also partially by the Housing and Urban Development, federal government. They gave us some money to help us complete our environmental and our preliminary engineering. We're with the start of this open house and environmental stages finishing up, we'll be moving on to design within the next month, I think. That will take about 8 months of engineering and with some review. Well, actually, let me go back. We're going to be starting to do preliminary engineering and also right of way, working with residents to purchase temporary easements and the permanent easements that are needed, stuff like that. And then we're do more engineering, and the plan is to start construction in the spring of 27. And yeah, I think that's kind of the gist of it, just widening the road, adding curb, cut, and sidewalk, and the purpose of it is to increase safety on that road.
Okay.
Questions?
Is there any specific questions that you maybe didn't get answered? Just a note, they actually applied for this and were awarded this funding back in 2020. So this has been on the books now for quite some time that they were going to do this. And so I know sometimes you just hear about it and think, oh, it's something, but no, when you're dealing with UDOT and UDOT funds, you apply way far in advance and it takes a few years before you actually cycle to the top and we have those funds available to us. So
in regards to the speed limit, is that something, obviously we can determine that from what I understand, but what's your recommended speed limit after you've got it engineered? Is it 30?
yeah.
Yeah, we plan to design for a 30 mile per hour speed limit. And see no need to increase it. And
What's Davis County's plans from Davis County to 1800?
yeah, so I do know of one plan they have is where they are gonna extend the highway up to 1800 north. At the completion of that phase 2, they're actually gonna build a trail that will connect onto our trail at the county line. And it'll kind of go down that Cranefield Road towards the golf course, kind of jogging around that way, and that will get you to 1800 north. I know they're making a trail that would connect from our trail to 1800 north. And I mean, that would be a West Point City Road. I know West Point owns that road now. It's not Davis County Road. It is a West Point Road. So I think that's something that West Point City is going to have to decide as a priority. But I think we all kind of agree that that would also be needed once 1800 north is completed.
And that was my question with plans, was West Point plan on widening their portion of it that you know of?
That I know of, no, but I do know that they have a few projects that are going out there that are more development positive, I guess. So I think that improving the roadways would also happen.
I have a question for Taylor. Then just state your name and then we'll have Taylor come back up and answer it.
I'm Sean Ray. And my question is where are the off-ramps going to be coming on? Like, do you know what streets the off-ramps are coming on? Or do we have one in Hooper? Are we going to have a couple? So that's my question.
Yeah, we've had some preliminary discussions with UDOT about that. And they do see that they want to put one at 5,500 South and at 4,000 South. But I think there's a little hesitation thinking that those two might be too close to each other. So I think they want to have two, but they're having to look at that possibility of spacing between two of them. And I think the priority would be 5,500 South.
Yes.
Ray Hancock, just curious, I was under the impression some of the funding for this was coming from the city directly. Is that not correct?
No, this project is funded completely by Wasatch Front Regional Council. They didn't give it all the money, and so actually we found a second source of money that would help us meet the match that the city would have to bring, which was like $600,000. So that's where the HUD, Housing and Urban Development, stepped in and gave us the local match that's required.
Sometimes there happens to be an overage, like we even found when we did the 5,500 North project. So, you know, they bid it out, they do the best they can to estimate what costs are going to be. So back to answer that question, there is a chance Hooper City may be responsible for some of that money, but it would be just because prices have gone up from the time now till that is completed. And we will know that all along the stage as it goes along.
David Craig, 5646 South, 4,000 or West, 4,000 South. With the HUD grant or funding, was there an presupposition or an expectation of development or growth in the city for HUD with it being urban planning and development type funding? Did they have an expectation of growth in the city to accommodate that type of funding?
I was kind of, I wasn't the one that applied for that, but I was also kind of confused, like, why would urban development come to Hooper? Because it's rural out here. But yeah, there's no stipulation about it. It's just money that they had. Blake Moore actually helped us get that money. He was the one that, I think the term is, earmarked it for us. So I think it kind of, this comes more from our regional representatives seeing a need for it. So that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering what size the pipe is that the ditch will be filled in, because sometimes that corner, we live on 5519 West, 5900 South. Sometimes the ditch in front of us can get really full in the spring, and the corner can be kind of a bottleneck where it comes under the road. Will it be a pretty good sized pipe on that side that you'll be piping the ditch with? Janet Foster.
Yeah, we haven't done those calculations yet, but it will be a reinforced concrete pipe, probably 24 to 30 inches big, is typically what I would expect for that size of road. That drainage ditch, I think it has a lot of agricultural runoff. So I think that's the reason why it would have to be sized that way.
You know, we always are trying to plan ahead. And so we appreciate who applied for this grant back in 2020, because that's what we're trying. And as Taylor mentioned, you know, we've already done phase 1, and now this will be phase 2. We were awarded a grant to do the same thing from 5,500 South to 5,100 South. Part of the reason I believe that Wasatch Front Regional Council had selected us for that, they have a program that's Safe Schools, and children that live, well, either direction, north or south of 5,100, you know, they don't have a bus. And so we know that we don't have really wide shoulders here in Hooper. We have a lot of open drain ditches. And so once we get that completed, which is, I don't remember now, 4 or 5 years maybe down. And then, so that will be phase 3. And when that's completed, then it will go from 5,100 South to where we stopped at 4,200 South. And part of this reasoning is too, if you're coming off of SR 177 and you now come and you've seen I know you've seen the increased traffic on 5500, and we can only imagine when they continue SR 177 through Hooper, or even when they're working on that 1800, there's going to be even more traffic. And so we're just we like to prevent things. We're trying to prepare, so we'll have everything all in place for when that SR 177 is coming through. So, okay, you have a question? Yes.
Miranda Hansen. So just based on the question that he had asked or comment he made, I know that we have that pathway that runs through, and I'm not opposed to having a concrete edge or whatever, but why do we need a path on one side and a sidewalk on the other? Wouldn't it just work to just have it on the one side?
How I would answer that is just saying that it's the city standard spec that city right of way has sidewalk with park strip and curb and gutter, and the asphalt width at just the standard. There's nothing that's set in stone that it has to have sidewalks, so it just had to be a decision that deviates from our city standard.
Larry Ropolato. So I'm a little confused about this. Maybe if you can explain, she asked about a pipe going across the road. So are we just guessing at a price on this, or how does the funding do? And I guess with my background in business and that, when we do contracts and that, whether I'm having somebody do something for me or I'm doing something for them, we give them a time frame. This is how much it's going to cost, and we guarantee you that it's going to cost, just for figures, $1 million. Prices go up, that's the chance that business takes. Now, if we're just leaving an open check saying, well, if prices go up, sure, we'll just pay you out of our funds. I don't think that's right, but I don't know how long this project, I don't know how you guys are working this, but I think we need to be a little bit more firm with these developers. They're making good money, and there's always room. When I bid something out in our business, you know what? If I know it's going to be a year out, I add a little bit to that bid if I know they're going to make me stick to it. Well, if we're getting this free funding, then let's make them guys stick to it. And so what if it costs a little bit more? But I'm trying to protect us and our people here with their money and not leave an open checkbook.
So, yeah, as Mayor said, this application went in 2020. So how we came up with the project cost was, it wasn't me, but an engineer like myself. We came up with the little preliminary designs like you saw, and we had to come up with cost engineering's opinion of probable cost, as we call it. We add in inflation factors over that 5 years. And we include as many things as we can, not just how much the asphalt costs, the concrete, but relocating fences and sidewalks and stuff like that. So it really is an opinion. There's not a whole lot of science in what we asked, how much we said, how much we thought the project was, but we asked for that amount. But also I've been working with Ben Withrich with the Wasatch Front Regional Council, and I expressed to him a little concern saying, I think in the money that you've given us might not, I think the inflation was a little higher than what we expected. And he did confirm to me, he's like, we can easily give them another $1 million to $1.5 million into that to cover what we would consider just increased inflation. So the Wasatch Front Regional Council is not just going to leave us with a check at the end. They're working with us, and yeah, that's what I think.
We see that happen all the time with Wasatch Front Regional Council. I sit on one of their committees, actually had a meeting today, but they were always coming back because just like you said, they bid this out in 2020. Well, did they have an exact amount of how much that's going to be in 2027? Possibly not, but they come back all the time. I haven't been to one meeting yet, and I go to 2 a month that they don't come back and ask. And usually they're really good to work with the cities.
I think I answered one part of that question too, is when it comes to the contractor's bid, we haven't gotten to that part yet. We'll work through the design and everything, and then we'll get competitive bids for the project, and that's, you know, that's when we'll say like, all right, this is really where we expect this project. Yeah, once we get those bids, we can hold, well, roadway projects are very difficult, and we try to plan for everything that's unknown. And sometimes things happen that things that happen underground that we didn't really know where they were. That yeah.
They should have done enough of that they know they're gonna run into things, and my concern is that they're already building that in, that, oh, we can get Hooper City for.
Yeah. I'll say also, we put in contingency factors. So we put in inflation, and then we add a 10% contingency. And even a lot of times we throw in just contingent items like water line loops or irrigation loops stuff. So we actually throw those in there on the two, like, you know, it could be $400,000 contingencies. Think is kind of, it's usually a 10%. So this project, whatever that is. So we add for those in the cost estimate.
Nick Haskin again. If I'm not mistaken, the road's currently 34 wide with the walking trail. And we're going to 65 wide, which is that something that is set in stone? Is that something that, are the plans stamped for, I guess is what I'm saying? Is there, where are we on this project? Do I need to just grin and bear it, or is there some room for some discussion and some negotiation potentially?
We are at about a 5% design is what I would say about that board. It's not very far. But the 66-foot right of way is set in stone. Like the city owns that right of way. And that's for that corridor. So the right of way, what happens within the right of way, there's plenty of things that could change, but what I plan for is just following the standard of the city that the city has.
And that was my question too. Thanks for bringing that up. Can we change city standard depending on, you know, where we're building roads? Can we do away with park strips, for example? Because I think park strips are a waste of space. Can we say, hey, we only want sidewalk on one side of the street instead of both? You know, does the council or does the city have leeway to change city standards based on the area that's being built?
Yeah, definitely have that right. That's your city, it's your things. If you don't want sidewalk, I think that's something that can be done. I, as an engineer and working in the public works, those park strips are vital for us. Water meters, sewer pits, gas lines. I mean, it's just all pretty critical infrastructure for the city, and that space is really helpful for us. So that's my stance, is I really need a park strip, but yeah, other things we can work with as you guys want.
And I guess I'm looking above ground and you're talking below ground.
Yeah, I try to see everything
understand.
below.
I get it. Thank you.
Most utilities in the middle of the street on that section.
That's what happens a lot, man. That's what's happened a lot in Hupper. It's like Hupper Water. You can always just predict that they are on the edge of the asphalt because they wanted to not replace the asphalt. That's what happened. And then when we come through with other projects, it gives us a big headache because things have to be relocated. It's just very difficult to get the water to drain and sewers to work the way they should, and just fit everything in there, communications and gas. So that's just my stance on it. And when it comes to new development, like we force those very strictly because we've seen what headaches it causes us in the past. So as this is an existing street, we do what we need to do. That we're not gonna be, there's gonna be storm drain probably that's kind of in that area. There probably actually won't be a lot that we are relocating into the park strip except for things that are like water meters. There's a few vacuum sewer pits that are in, but they don't have to be relocated. So yeah, there's probably not going to be a whole lot that gets relocated into the park strip on this project. But again, I'm just stating as a standard what I typically follow.
Okay, thank you. So our next public hearing then is on our fee schedule. So you probably noticed this, came out in the packet if you happen to look at it. We're really trying to evaluate our fee schedule because when we've looked at this, some things haven't been updated for a number of years. We always want things to be affordable for our residents in Hooper, but we have found we at least need to have our fee schedule, for instance, to rent the pavilion, to pay enough that it actually pays one of our workers to go clean up after and dump garbages. And so if someone would like to make a motion, we will move into a public hearing on the fee schedule.
So moved.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilmember Wilcox. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second was made by Councilmember Hill. Okay, so again, this is a public hearing on our fee schedule. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. It went out in the packet and we will be what packet? Is that what they said? It goes out with the minutes. So if you go to hoopercity.gov, and the minutes the packets are, we try to get them out a week ahead. Usually they're always out by the Monday before. And then you'll find a list. Everything we're talking about tonight is in this packet that you can print out. And so, or if you pull it up on your phone right now, you can look at it as well. So it's, yes, under hoopercity.gov, go to government, and then you drop down and it has meeting minutes. Click on meeting minutes and you'll be able to see today's date and it says packet. And then you'll be able to look through there and it lists all of this. So yes, does anybody have anything for public hearing about a fee schedule? Okay, seeing none then, we'll move back into, if someone will make a motion to move back into our regular meeting.
I'll do that.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, motion was made by Councilmember Hill. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second was made by Councilmember Wilcox. Okay, so I would like to ask council if it would be all right if we moved up one discussion item ahead of the fee schedule. And this is the discussion motion to have a draft ordinance created on SWIP, because Taylor's also going to walk us through this. And so then I can have him take his turn and then we'll go back if that's all right. Does someone on council want to make that motion to move that item as our first one on our action items?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion was made by Councilmember Hill. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second was made by Councilmember Fowers. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and turn some time to Taylor to go through this with us as well.
Yeah. So as you guys may be aware, back in January, we had our stormwater, our MS4 audit, which is concerned about the stormwater and water quality. We got dinged pretty hard on a lot of things about what we should be doing as part of that MS4 permit. And so we've been working on those things, trying to improve and get up to standard. One of the things, we got pretty dinged on a lot of the ordinances pertaining to stormwater. So they've told us that we need to get those updated by December of this year. So we've drafted up some changes to those ordinances just concerning stormwater. And we want to present them to you guys now and start looking at them by however long that takes. It's not an easy process, but we want to have them adopted by December. Some things that they're talking about, I mean, some of them are silly. Like we all know what illicit discharge, we know what illicit means. When it comes to illicit discharging stuff into their storm drain, one of the ordinances it says is you need to say it is illegal to do an illicit discharge into the stormwater. Seems kind of redundant. It didn't say that in our ordinances, so we're just going to change some things. It says it's illegal to do illicit discharge. That's one of the things, some things that we've already been doing. We've been having developers follow these rules, but it's not really in our ordinances, so we want to update them. Things about getting stormwater prevention plans and getting, we call them common plan permits and general permits or something like that for if you're disturbing more than 1 acre of land, that you need to file for a permit. You know, that's what we already do. It's just not really said in our ordinances. It talks about escalating enforcement if people are illicitly discharging or prevent pollution, polluting the water. How we first enforce it, we write in like steps of writing them, and then we give them time to fix it, and how we follow up with that. We impose fines. They do allow us to impose fines if they're after a certain number of violations that we can go with that. So that's kind of spelled out in the ordinances that we want to propose. Stuff like, you know, things like it needs to say in the ordinances that it's illegal to discharge chlorinated swimming pool water into the storm drain system. It needs to be dechlorinated. Some that needs to be added in there. I'm just trying to give you a good idea of what I'm proposing in there, but we do want it to go past the city attorney and have him give us okay, because this was written just by engineers, but.
Do you have these in writing now or where are they?
Yeah, they were submitted with.
Oh, I haven't seen, okay.
I think everything that's in red is what we're proposing to change. One thing also, we tried a lot of outdated wording. That it's just the state uses that wording, so we want to change it to stay consistent with them. So that's just what we're proposing to get you guys to look at, and hopefully to get that adopted by December. Questions?
Any questions? So as Taylor mentioned, so this was in your packet. So on the motion tonight is to approve to create an ordinance for SWIP. So we're not approving this ordinance tonight. What we're doing is we are making a motion then to approve the ordinance, a draft of an ordinance. So if you approve to have a draft, then Reed will have a chance to go through this, and it mentions on September 18th. So you can go home and review this. In the meantime, we will have Reed go through it. And then on our September 18th meeting, then we'll come back and then actually have something that our legal has reviewed. And then you can vote on whether we want to have this passed or not. So do any of you have any questions on this for Taylor? No? Okay, we appreciate all the work JUB's done. You know, no one ever likes to get audited. It wasn't because of anything we had done wrong. You're kind of on a time to do it, and it ended up being our time when it was. So, okay, so then we can just have the motion then to, what we're doing is we're approving to create a draft by Reed, and then he will come back with that on September 18th. You'll get it the week ahead of time to be able to review that.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve to write a draft ordinance for the stormwater pollution prevention plan and authorize Reed to do that.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilmember Fowers. Is there a second?
Just a clarifying question. What is HCC 6-4? Okay, does that need to be in the motion? I don't.
He just wondered if we needed to have that in the motion. Ryan was wondering if we needed, correct?
Well,
Councilmember?
I can amend that motion to
Okay.
include HCC 6-4.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion was made by Councilmember Fowler, seconded by Councilmember Hill. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go back up and we're not going to do the budget review tonight by Councilmember Hill. Our treasurer has been out of town and so we were not able to get that information. So now we're going to go ahead and have a discussion from Weber State University on New Hope. So we appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you for having me. My name is Doug Myler, and it's nice to be among friends. I volunteer for New Hope, which is based out of Weber State University. It's funded by IHC and also private donations. It's a coalition of suicide prevention and awareness. So we have Weber Mental Health, we have Weber Oregon Health Department, Ogden Pride, we have the Hope Squads, and all sorts that come together to get the resources out to the community so that you know what to do in the crisis. Let's see. So how is it done? So we do booths. So if like for Tomato Days, 4th of July, whatever, we have done kids safe days as well. We have our own walk, which is on the 3rd Saturday of September at the Ogden Amphitheater. We have about 3,000 attendees there. But we just get the word out that because Utah is very vulnerable, we're the 6th highest in the whole nation. And men 25 to 65 are the highest rate in that group. So to get the word out and what to do, what to look for in friends, how to get them to respond. We have training on that. It's called QPR, to like the old CPR. Anyway, this is to question and persuade and refer them to someone that they need. We can come and do, like I say, any of those events if you want in Hooper, or if you have a business that the employees need to be trained, or even in the city, of what to do to help. So that's our what we can do to help you. What I'm asking is, I'm a volunteer and we're not at bare minimum, but we're kind of dwindling on volunteers. So I've been to North Ogden, South Ogden, and Plain City. Plain City was the most receptive, by the way. On what we need volunteers, and it would really help to have the perspective of the good city of Hooper on that coalition to help with getting the word out and to get the word to your city as well. Plain City also offered to put it on their website and in the newsletter. If you're willing to do that, that would really help, because I can send something in a draft to Morgan and do that. So I really appreciate you letting me do this tonight, and it's a very good cause and helps a lot of people. I can think of one or two. I know lots of people of Hooper. I live in Roy, but a couple that deal with this issue in Hooper. So anyway, any questions for me?
So Morgan has all your information. So if we have someone that wants to serve, wants to volunteer, be on your coalition, does she have all your contact information? She
has mine, but I'm going to give also the coalition director. I'll just let you take a picture of his card.
Okay, yes, that would be great. I'm sure we can find someone that will be willing to serve on that coalition.
Oh, that will be awesome.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next thing we have then is a discussion motion. And again, we're going to approve this fee schedule on September 18th. We've talked about this now a couple of times, but we wanted to just discuss it. We had the public hearing on it, which is one of our requirements that we need to do. So I don't know if City Council, if you have any questions, discussion on this. I know like I say, we've talked a few times about it, but we want to have this ready to go if we can, to have this approved on our September 18th meeting.
I think the item we need to talk about, Morgan sent us an email about Juan, right? So the group that's having the tournaments on Sunday, and it looks like to me that it's $100? Are they paying $100 for the whole facility? Is that correct?
They pay per field. It's per field. Yes.
So is that a for-profit endeavor? I'm assuming it is. If it's, I don't know for sure, but like I said a week or a couple weeks ago, that there have been some complaints about that. I know is the contract expired? Mhm.
I am Morgan in the city recorder. No, so we've had him not come through this Sunday or the following for Tomato Day rentals, stuff like that. And then he does have 2 more after. So I was incorrect with my information last week, so I apologize. But he does have 2 more after that. So he is a few weeks into September. He has requested to go through October to finish out his season. I told him where we were at as a council, and he just said to keep him informed. So.
Okay. I guess I have a couple concerns. Is that covering our costs? I don't know if it is or not. And then maybe one thought is we let them finish the year. But as far as using it every Sunday like this, I think we need to keep these parks, Saturday, that's kind of a given. Friday, Saturday, midweek have tournaments, but I think Sunday, I think that ought to be reserved for our citizens and do not have those, especially it's a very minimal amount we're making. And I know just the dump fees, I've seen the dumpsters out there, the garbage cans out there, it's probably more than $100. I'm pretty confident of that. But that's the only thing I have on this fee schedule that I think we need to address. So I don't know what the other council members feel if you let them finish out the year and then we kind of make a decision after that.
So one thing we had noted, but not that it would necessarily, because, that's whatever you decide you want to do with that. But we had talked about changing the fee instead of $25 to $50 for non-residents and to $100. This is per field. And so keep in mind, we are going to raise, but I think what you're talking about is important. We need to decide what you'd like to do with that. And then we also, I know, Councilmember Harry, you brought up last time, because we had said about renting the whole park was $750 for a non-resident, for a resident, $1,500 for a non-resident. But that was for, we thought probably the other park. And if we do that, do we want that to be for both parks? And I guess this is a question for you, Reed. If we change, I don't know that we necessarily have right now a code or an ordinance about not letting team play on our parks. Is that something then that we would want to draft and have be as one of our ordinances? About as renting out our parks on Sundays for league play. That's what Councilmember Wilcox was talking about. Okay. Well, so do you want to tell Morgan to tell him as far as renting it out the rest of the season, 2 more?
I mean, we've kind of committed to them, and I don't want to be that guy, but I think we let them finish the season and then make some changes after that.
He will be done before we close our fields October 15th. So we just will have those 2 October weeks as well, not the full 4.
4 more weeks.
Do you have any other questions on the fee schedule?
So I agree with what Bryce said, and I've said all along that I don't think we should be renting our parks to non-residents or especially competitive leagues on Sunday, because they should be reserved for our residents to enjoy as families or whatever. I know I drive by here on Sunday and this park is entirely full now on Sunday, and the Boweries are full, the playground's full. There's not a single place that our residents could even think about renting on Sunday because this group has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger over the summer. So anyway, I agree with Bryce. I think we ought to just, by resolution, only allow residents to rent, our parks on Sunday. Just looking at the fee schedule itself, I think we still need to iron out the parks and arena rental prices and what we charge for the entire park, this one versus the other one, if it's, we want to do it the same. It's $500 now for the other park, per entire day. That includes the rodeo grounds, I would imagine. And then we've also talked about the Boweries. I think the discussion was had going from 10 to 50 on the small one and 25 to 100 on the large one. That seems like a huge increase. I think we could tone that back a little bit, possibly.
One suggestion on the large pavilion rental. So currently it is, if they rent the large pavilion, it's $25 and then the kitchen's $50. But we had talked about having that be now $100 and it includes the kitchen. So whenever they rent it, because one issue we've ran into is, I think I mentioned this last time, the lights to turn on underneath the pavilion are inside the kitchen. So if somebody rents the pavilion and they don't have the kitchen and it gets dark, they have no way to turn the lights on. And a lot of times it is a convenience, especially we talked about when I say we talked with parks and with staff, if we had some cleaning supplies, because right now we would like them to clean them, but they don't have access to a hose or to any kind of cleaning supplies. Or if we did, we could have those inside the kitchen. And we had talked about with parks as far as changing. So there's that sink that's right inside the door, changing it so it actually has a faucet type capacity that you could screw a hose on. So then we could even have a list when you're done. Would you please clean up after yourself? Sometimes it's hard to ask people to clean up after themselves if we haven't provided them any means to do that. So I think that was why that one went up from the, 25 to 100 is because it actually went up from 75 to 100 because now they will be getting the, large Bowery and the kitchen for 100. But yes, if we want and then we had it double for a non-resident. Excuse me. And then the small, if you want to change that from 10 and have it go 30 or even 25. And then again, just double that if we want to for a non-resident.
So you're talking about, again, the South Park.
We're talking about the South Park.
What about here? Do we want separate fees for these Boweries?
So I don't know that we ever rent out this small one that's.
So they'd be together. It'd be a together rental, right? For both, for the north side, North Park. Basically this area, the rent, yeah.
Yeah.
So we need to add that line item, and I think we need to add a line item for renting this entire park as well.
Okay. Are you thinking, so what are you thinking to rent out the entire park? Because like I said, it was 500 and we thought about doing 750. These prices have been well, let's see, it's been a few years. 2021. So it's been 4 years, but what you're thinking is a reasonable rate. Most places do have a different rate for their non-residents. We just never have. But that certainly is something, if you feel like we should do, that we could do.
Cemetery plots.
We do have non-resident on cemetery. Maybe let's just start then with this First, it's just kind of as we go down then, do you want, what would you like that small Bowery to be? And we're talking about the South Park. They call this the North Park and that one they just called Hooper Park. But what would you like that to be? And we are wanting to get rid of deposits. Deposits are very cumbersome. They take up half of the, when there's checks, and we thought we would have a credit card on file instead. And so that's kind of, I think some of our thinking was, we won't have the deposits anymore.
So, I'll just throw out some numbers. So small Bowery, I would say $10 to $25
Okay,
for residents, double for non-residents. We'll get rid of the large Bowery line and we'll just have large Bowery and kitchen for 100
okay.
and 200 for non. And then North Park, what do you think? What are we renting it now for?
We're renting it for 25 and we thought about having it go to 50 for a resident and 100 for a non-resident. And these are based on some numbers. Councilmember Maragoni and myself, about a year ago, we called a bunch of parks and she took about half, I took about half, and we felt like these still weren't all that unreasonable. But it's up to you. We can charge what you feel is applicable.
So $50 for basically the entire Bowery section at the North Park.
Well, it's we're on the fields. Is that what you meant?
No, right here.
Oh, yes. Oh, we don't even have a line item for
Right,
that.
right.
So we probably should. And I probably 50.
And then we need a line item, well, yeah, for the entire park, for the North Park. So the first question is $750 too much for the South Park?
Well, it has been 500. It's been 500 for quite a few years, and it does not include the arena. You had mentioned that. It usually just includes, exclusive, and it lists all of that. But it has not included the arena, because if you look up above, there are separate fees that were for the arena.
So let's keep it separate, because a lot of people won't use it. They'll use the arena separate.
Yeah.
I feel like $750 is a lot for just that park.
Well, you can always keep it 500. That's what it has been.
Okay, let's do 500 and 1,000 for non-residents,
Okay.
unless there's an objection.
And then this park, maybe
This-
this park should be, if they were paying $50, well, that still doesn't come out though, because if you were paying $50 for a field, you're only talking $200.
They're getting the Boweries as well.
Yeah. That's
So
true.
500 seems too much for this park. I'd say, what, 400?
So 500 for the other park and 400 for this one?
I don't know. What do you think?
It's too much on the 18th.
Well, it's 400 for residents, so it'd be 800 for non-resident?
Mm-hmm.
Or should we do 750? Let's just do 250, oh no. Good night. 350 and 700. Sold. I was just gonna bring that up.
No.
Everyone-
So far, we haven't rented our pickleball courts, other than we did have one time when there was a large youth activity, I believe, that they did. But other than that, we haven't been renting them. So you're thinking 350 non-resident, or excuse me, resident, 700 non-resident for this park. And then for the other park, South Park, Main Park, 500 and 1,000. Okay. And 50 North Pavilion for a non-resident, 100 for, or excuse me, I keep saying those backwards, 50 for a resident, 100 for a non-resident.
But then do we need to adjust the per field price to be conducive to the 350?
Well, but one thing though, they're getting the playground as well and the pavilion if they rent the whole park. So if you had those, that would be 200. And we said for the North Pavilion was 50, so you're already up to 250. And then, so that's just an additional $100 if they want to rent the whole park, if they were just coming per se to do the,
So per field, we're going 50 and 100 per individual field here.
well, that was the suggestion.
Okay.
That was 50 and 100. Does that sound all right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Do you see anything else on there?
The arena rentals are staying the same. Is that what we said?
If you want those to stay the same, the only thing we've done is taken out, but it was interesting because we found we had two different copies when we were looking at this. So let me just make sure. Because the copy that was in the packet had $25 an hour, but when I looked at the copy that we had passed out last week, it was already $50 an hour. So if we keep that $50 an hour, that's probably in line because it already looks like it was, but that's what it went up to. That would have been in 2021.
And then for the youth groups, it's 25 an hour, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and then the daily rental, and again, we would just eliminate the deposit. We require people anyway, it has daily rental with spectators, but we require people to provide insurance anyway when they're using our arena, whatever group that is.
So the restrooms was another thought I had. If they rent the entire park, they get use of the restrooms. If they only rent a field or 2 or 4, they don't get the restrooms.
Yeah, the restrooms are always open.
Okay.
When water comes on, I shouldn't say always, but the restrooms are open. Usually they turn them on around April 15th. They kind of wait to make sure they're past the frost zone. And then usually well, the one down at the other part, they wait till Halloween haunt's over, but usually about the middle of October. And then the restrooms are closed.
We have a line item down there on the bottom that says restrooms, non-city office hours, $25.
You know, and again, this was old. Our restrooms we have now have those electronic locks that they can actually control with a phone. So they have a timer. And I believe, I could be wrong on the opening time. I'm pretty sure the closing time is at 10. But I'm not sure. I don't know. Morgan, do you know what time the bathrooms are? Maybe 8 a.m.? I'm not sure on that, but anyway, they're on a time. So before they probably had that because if somebody had to come, now they just automatically lock at 10 o'clock.
So we can get rid of that line item then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, we'd line through that old one. I think there were some new prices that maybe weren't on yours before that talked about the signs. I don't remember if these were these. Because I know our street supervisor went and did get us. Yes, the bottom of page 2, you'll see he went and actually priced signs, what they were. And so that has been updated, those prices. Also, you'll see on page 3, the price is updated for the loader, backhoe, all of the equipment going down, and those hadn't been updated for a long time. And again, these are mainly for ordinance violation use. You know, if the city had to sometime go do that, we felt like we needed to have a price in there. And so Jared was responsible and gave us those prices. Some of them you'll see down below, like on bottom of page 3, where it has current costs as far as public works, because those change so often that we pretty much just have to have current costs because it didn't seem very advantageous. Jared didn't feel like to put in an amount because they do change. Do you see any questions? I know, Jared, we talked about this one last time. It's on page 5 and it's under other permit fees and it talks about the new pit vacuum sewer connection. So we're almost down just right above where there's the other colored line where it says administrative. And I think we talked about this last time that Jared said it would be $10,000. We will keep the receipts. If it's less than 10,000, we will give them back money. If it's more, then they will have to have signed something saying they agree to pay the difference. You see any else? You know, we just need a motion tonight to say that because we had our public hearing already that we're going to be voting on these, and this will give us a little bit of time to work on these, and we will be voting on these on September 18th. Do we make them, we had on our agenda approval of fee schedule to be voted on September 18th, but if we're not necessarily voting on anything now, that sounds like it just, I agree. Yeah, okay. Okay, and if you have any questions between now and then, get with, you know, Morgan, if you have any of those at all.
Sunday and just approve the attached schedule. So whatever you want with the schedule is attached to this.
Okay. Okay, if no other discussion on that, then we want to move to our next discussion. And again, this is going to be a motion. Our wording was not what would needed to be in that one, but we're also going to discuss this and then motion for Reed to draw us up a draft of the amendment because he hadn't had a chance to look through this. And so, but we want to discuss it first so you know what items that you would like to have in there, not. So when Reed has that, he will bring that back. This was something that was discussed in planning commission meetings. So I'm going to turn some time over to Malcolm, the city planner, to go through this with us.
We had 2 work meetings with the planning commission just prior to their meetings and had some discussions about oversized structures. The thought with staff had just been that we do a lot of conditional use permits for oversized structures, but they don't get denied ever, which is probably a good thing, but they also rarely tend to get conditions placed. I mean, there's definitely some discussion and things, but it seemed like potentially we could increase the size so that there was less of a process to have an oversized structure if we're just going to continue to process them the same way that we have been. So in early discussions, we just did some research on what other cities were doing. A lot of cities were doing, rather than doing a set size, they would do a percentage of a rear yard. So they would allow for like 25% of a rear yard, sometimes 25% in a rear and a side. So you could have as many oversized structures as you wanted, but once you hit that, you were capped, and that was just across the board. Planning commission didn't love that. We do get a lot of really big shops here, and they didn't want to have a situation where they couldn't one-off discuss maybe a large riding arena or, you know, something that was different and, you know, large and would go beyond a percentage. So we would still have our current process. They just discussed increasing the size of the allowed shops or oversized structure in the different zones. With that discussion, it got brought up that it might be a good time to revisit our accessory dwelling unit maximum size, which may also include our minimum. As you guys are aware, we just submitted our moderate income housing plan, and one of the primary strategies that's represented here at Hooper is accessory dwelling units. So we actually submitted the minutes and the motion for this recommendation from the planning commission to you as part of our plan, because it was genuine work we've done and something that I think fits Hooper's profile well. And the planning commission seems to think so too, that we have good sized lots that could accommodate good sized shops that could then accommodate family, friends, and, you know, maybe even the primary dwelling of the residents at some point in their life. So just quickly, I wanted to highlight a couple of those details. So just to make sure, you know, these didn't come out of left field. We tried to draw some data. You'll see in your packet, I made a bubble chart. That data pulled from all of the permits that were granted through our My City Inspect. It was a little bit more, there were more represented, I believe, and I think it's a little bit more choppy. But that being said, this graph here is just what I pulled from our minutes. I went and snagged all of the oversize for R1 and R2, which was really all that was represented. You can see the average there. So this is kind of what we're permitting. And in R1, I excluded the outlier there, 30,000 square foot. That wouldn't really add well to the average. So we're about 3,600 square foot average in R1 and 2,000 square foot average being approved in R2 over the last, what's that, 3-year time period. You can kind of see the number there as well. And so with that discussion, here's our current allowance. You can see for R1, R3 quarter, and R2, you go up to 1,600 square feet in an R2. Let's see, 1,600, and then you need a conditional use. You can go up to 18 in an R3 quarter or R7.5, and then you need a conditional use. You can go up to 2,000 in an R1, and then you need to get your conditional use. After discussion and looking at averages, and maybe even you could say we did a little bit of sensitivity analysis and kind of saw how many would get taken with each increase. The proposal change is here, 2,500 for R2, 3,000 for R7.5, and up to 5,000 square foot in an R1. So it is a significant change. It's not, you know, they're not small changes, but we do think it fits well, and that was the discussion. Couple things to note, the ordinance change as well. So let me go through that briefly in your packet. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. If you go to kind of the first page here after the fee schedule, 15, Planning Commission recommendations. These are just the definitions in our current ordinance. Definition for a dwelling secondary attached, that'd be like an IADU or an internal IDU. The only change that was discussed is as we increase these sizes, there was discussion that the Planning Commission would recommend that in red there that each principal dwelling could qualify for one secondary attached unit. Right now, it doesn't explicitly, I think, say they can't have more than one, but they'd like to have one internal. That also applies for external, and that would be together they could have an internal and an external, but no more. So one of each. So each primary dwelling could have an internal and an external, no more. You'll see under the dwelling secondary detached, the major change was potentially in recommending a change to the size of an accessory dwelling unit. Our current maximum is 960 square feet. We thought with this increase, this could really go well for our moderate income housing plan. We've gotten feedback that, you know, residents would like the ability to do a larger accessory dwelling unit. So they changed it, and I'll just read it. Each principal dwelling can qualify for one secondary detached. The secondary unit's living area, exclusive garage, covered porch or patio, is a minimum of 400 square feet, which is current ordinance, and then a maximum of 50% of the square footage identified as an allowed use for the accessory structure found in that table, or 50% of the accessory building square footage permitted through a conditional use permit. So half of the allowed maximum size. So if you went back to these, just an example, in an R2 without a conditional use, you could have a 1,250 square foot, 1,250 square foot ADU, a 1,500 in a R7.5, and a 2,500 square foot in an R1. So you'd have half of that accessory structure be living space, was the proposal. Just a couple notes from staff, and no criticism intended, just genuine, you know, staff trying to make sure that you guys take all factors in consideration. We're just curious, we'd want to make sure there was discussion on if there should be an increase in the required number of automobile spaces for a dwelling, secondary attached or attached, if we are increasing the allowed size for the living space. Planning Commission didn't feel like we needed it. It hasn't been a problem at all, at least in my time here. The parking for the space, it seems like people have ample space. Right now, we require one for a primary and one for a secondary. So you'd have two for any residents that had one. The other question is, should we allow for detached accessory dwelling unit living space to be increased with the issuance of an oversized structure permit? The discussion happened at planning commission that, hey, if you allow for 50% of the maximum size to be living space, but then you just have that as your ordinance and you allow for conditional use permits, you could in theory have someone come build a 10,000 square foot accessory dwelling and have a 5,000 square foot. So it'd be a really big home behind a home. I don't know if you guys want that. The discussion though was that we do have our impervious surface requirements. So at some point they're gonna get capped out, right? 65% impervious surface maximum. So at some point the accessory structure would be capped in theory. With an increase in accessory structure size, should we consider an additional impervious surface restriction specifically for your rear yards? I know Clinton and Layton have rear yard specific impervious surface requirements. That would essentially be doing the same thing as allowing like Far West and Plain City allow, 25% for accessory structures. Really just be kind of monitoring the same way. It'd take a little bit of thought, but just a discussion point. And then finally, just another thought would be, should we increase the allowed size in R3 for accessory structures and potentially R4? This would ensure that they can still obtain our current allowance for a 960 square foot ADU. So with this change, and Reed could probably advise, if we changed it and we only allowed for half of the allowed maximum, then some zones, let me pull that up, sorry. There we are. Some zones, for instance, R3 and R4, you can see would be limited to a 600 square foot ADU, it looks like. And so that would actually reduce their ability if we don't change the size, or if we don't change our the minimum for it. You get what I'm saying? We kept it as how it was discussed to 50% of the allowed size. And so I'd like some input there if we want to allow for R3 and R4. And then, so anyways, that's pretty much all of the details that were discussed. Do you guys have questions for me regarding what was discussed and just how you guys would like to process it? That'd be good input as well. If you guys like to have work meetings, or how you guys would like to work on this and what details we could provide to help make good decisions. So
when I was going through this today and discussed a few things with Malcolm, these were just some questions that I, excuse me, that I had. So right now we have, and this already has been, proof of occupancy must be provided to city annually. And I asked Malcolm if we already had a form in place that we don't know that we do. So we're really not sure how we are currently making sure that we have that proof of occupancy. And one good suggestion Malcolm had is that maybe that form could be created in City Inspect. And then that would be a way he could even more easily track how many IADUs or, external ADUs we have. But I don't know that we're currently doing that. And we said we were going to, and I don't know that we have. I don't know that we have created a form. I'm not aware of one. And if we had a form originally that they did, I don't know that we are requiring them to come in annually and actually show proof of occupancy. So if we're going to have this in our, zoning ordinance, then we need to make sure we have some kind of documentation in place. And if it was in City Inspect, that might be an easy way to do that. And this I didn't know either, but just some questions, Malcolm and I. And so we said about an exception to the owner occupancy, because I remember when we talked about this, we said there might be an exception, but again, they would have to come in and fill out a form, because we talked about, well, someone could maybe be in the military service, or maybe a senior couple would go on an LDS mission. So maybe for a period of time, they might not be living in either one of them, but I don't know that we've created a form either for them to be able to come in and fill out. We had these in place, but then I don't know that we've done it. And then we also talked about then, if there are exceptions, would this be approved by the Planning Commission? Because once they're built, they're no longer a land use. Or if they're coming in for an exception, is that something that maybe goes to our appeal authority? I don't know exactly who it would, because it wouldn't necessarily still be a land use issue. So that might be something.
If I were to sum that up, all that I think we just went over, if I understand it, is to prove that whoever owns this, one, or they're living in one or the other, that they're not renting both places.
Yes, that's what it says. My question was, I don't think we've ever created those forms because it says that we are going to annually, they have to come in and prove that, or even when they build them. So yes, I like that. I think that's an agreeable thing. We just don't have anything in place yet that I know of. So that's something we need to do. You know, if we're going to require that in our ordinance, then somehow we either need to have a form for them to do or have it be in city inspect or how do we know if they're having one or the other? Because we've never created the form to say that, which is something that we probably should do. And another thing was that too, in our ordinance, it says in the event of a violation, a fine may be issued and or the property owner charged with a misdemeanor. And we don't have anything necessarily listed in our code of what that misdemeanor or fine would be for this specifically. So that's, some of these I think are just little details that we need to get more explicitly put in.
I think we're on the right track. There's two probably recommendations I'd give. I think all R3 and R4 should still be allowed to have the 960. I don't think they should be penalized to do a smaller, because they can do it now. I don't think they should be penalized. The parking issue, I know Jared, he's probably like, oh, make sure all those cars are off the road during the winter time. So I think we need to make sure that there's off-street parking. Because from what I understand from this, you can have your primary residence, a detached ADU, and attached ADU. So you could have 3 families living on the same property, correct? So I don't know, that maybe there's 6, 8 cars there. So I think we need to be sensitive to that to make sure that they can get off the road during the winter time. But other than that, I like it. And if someone builds a 10,000 square foot shop and puts a 5,000 barn dominium or whatever, they've got to live in one of them. And I guess the other concern that maybe when the property changes hands, it's sold or passed down to kids or whatever, I don't know. I guess if we have those things in place to check them every year, it shouldn't be a problem. But we've got to really watch that someone doesn't buy it and they're gonna, hey, this is a great rental place. There's 3 sources of income. So I think we got to look out for that. But I do like this. So I think
I do too. I just add a couple of other, so on, if you go to your top E, it says a minimum of 2-car garage is required for each dwelling unit. So I didn't know if we want to, I wasn't even aware for sure if we had that, because that's came up before in some Utah League meetings. But so for each dwelling unit, so do we want that also as a requirement for an ADU? If they have off-road parking, do they need to still have a 2-car garage, or as long as they have somewhere to park, is that suitable? That was just a question. I don't know that answer. That was just something that I had wondered about.
I wouldn't be so concerned about having a garage on the ADU as long as they can get off the street. So
that was the thing I was thinking too. So on the primary residence, I didn't even know that we had that. But so that might be something we want to look at too. And then, it talks down below too about the exterior building materials, anyway, for duplexes and twin homes. But I don't even know if right now we currently have a twin home designation in our zoning that I know we have some bonus density. They can do duplexes, but I wasn't sure if we even had twin homes in any of our zoning. And so if it's not, and we want this in there, then we need to make sure we get that added. If you don't want it, then we need to take out that verbiage about the twin homes. But one other thing too, I'd made a little note on too. Well, and I think you already addressed that. I think this came up in Planning Commission as well, whether because if someone builds a 5,000 square foot, it could be, and then they have half of that 2,500, they could have a bigger unit behind their back than their house. But I don't know. I don't know if I think planning, yeah. And then the only other thing too, which we had changed this, but this questions came up. We've had a few people come into the office and ask about this one, is where it says a single family detached may not have any part extending beyond the furthest rear. And I know it used to be beyond the front of it, but we do out here have some wide parcels. And so then if somebody wanted to have an AD unit on the side, I'm certainly believe it needs to be behind the front of the house, but some might not have enough depth to have it behind the rear of the house. But if we wanted to, you know, and that again, it would be, they would have to have a wide enough unit, and then it would just be for sure behind the front.
Yeah, we could look at that again, I think.
Yeah. Did any of you see any other things? You know, we joked today when I was going through this with Malcolm about the minimum of 400 square feet. Tiny homes are kind of a thing now. I don't know how many square feet there are in a tiny home. I don't know if anybody, if they ever did want to do a tiny home, I don't know what their minimum square feet is, but we have that here in our code, a minimum of 400. I don't know. I don't know if that's ever anything, but if it is, it would eliminate them from being able to put a tiny home. But well, what we want to do with this tonight is like we've done is just discuss it and then have Reed draw us up, but you know, we'll have you go through this. Have you? Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys, I'd love to make sure just that Dell and Ryan are interested in, you know, just having a potential, I guess how we could look at it is it was effective with the planning commission just having in their work meetings. And I agree, Ryan, I don't, we might have miscommunication and stuff. We don't ever want to feel like you guys need to make decisions on things that could be discussed. So maybe we have it in a work meeting, if that works. And I can do some research on those 3 items you listed, bring what other cities are doing, and then we can iron out details. Make sure it's something actionable for Reed, get it drafted and bring it back. Yeah, I can solicit their feedback as we, you know, we'll see them before we see, well, depends, maybe tomato days, we'll see. But we'll see them eventually before we see you.
So a tiny home, according to AI, is anything 400 square feet or smaller. That's a small home.
It is well, so by that, and like I say, I don't know, but that time may come, someone might want to, that I think maybe that, you know, I had highlighted that because there's a couple of places where it talks about a minimum of 400 feet that I don't know. Maybe we don't want to necessarily have a minimum. I don't know.
Well, that brings another question, because a lot of those tiny homes are built on trailers and they have their own sewer system, you know, it's, I know how they do it, but I don't know how to explain it. So I don't know, that does raise a question, you know, can I put a tiny home back there that's on a trailer and what's the difference?
Those are a trailer house.
Yeah, so it's a trailer house. So
That's
I don't, so I guess if it's fastened to some kind of foundation, a tiny home, I don't think it should be mobile, you know, because then that would open a can of worms for, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Well, then I certainly think we can talk about this in a work meeting. So we won't plan on doing any kind of motion tonight to have redraft this up because we need to discuss this more.
Well, thanks for you guys' time. The planning commission was excited about it. I do think just kind of reiterate I do think it fits well with Hooper. I think that, you know, we have big lots and I think this could be a good way to accommodate some of the affordability discussion and, you know, maintain what we've been working on. So it looks like it could be something exciting to push on. So.
Okay, any other discussion on that? If not, then is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilmember Fowers. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second was made by Councilmember Wilcox. All in favor? Okay, thank you for coming tonight.